So this video is to highlight the use and the construction of the tool to be used to remove the timing belt gears from the crankshaft and the oil pump, as well as the camshaft triangles on the Porsche 928 32 valve engines. So the central part of this tool is the actual tool plate. The center part is threaded, and so you'll see several sets of holes. These smaller holes are for the camshaft triangle. The inside 3 holes are actually for the crankshaft. The outside 3 holes are for the oil pump. So the center bolt is actually threaded through the center. If you notice, it's actually a little thicker. We did that to give it plenty of thread engagement, but also make the tool a little bit lighter. So it does go through that all the way. There is an acorn nut here that goes on the end of this bolt, only for the oil pump gear and the camshaft triangle and or cam gears. These 3 little bolts here are for the triangle for the camshaft, and these are the jaws that were designed specifically to wrap around and kind of integrate with the teeth on the crankshaft gear as well as the oil pump gear. These are specifically designed to be as narrow as possible to fit into some really tight spaces, but also be wide enough to give you plenty of engagement with the gears. So they get quite a bit of engagement and are plenty strong to actually pull off those gears, especially if they're rusted on or corroded on, have been on there for a long time. So this is the part where we're going to highlight how to use the crankshaft gear puller and the other modes of the tool. So if you notice, there are some marks here, and so this gear has 24 teeth on it. So what we're going to do is we're going to count 8 teeth over. So you see another line down here and then another line over here. That's going to be where the actual jaws line up. But what I want to highlight is that you need to bend this washer back. This washer is going to be a sacrificed piece. So you can use a punch like I have here, and you just go in between the teeth. You can also use a screwdriver and a hammer, and you just want to tap back on this. And you'll want to do this for all 3 of those locations to give the jaws room to get behind the gear. Before we start installing the teeth, I want to highlight some of the bolts that I removed for the rear cover, so that gives us room to move this cover around. It gives you a lot of flexibility. So there's one here, there's another one here between the crankshaft and the oil pump, and then there's also another one that's over here, which you don't have to completely remove. And then there's also one up here that goes to the cylinder head. So just removing those bolts makes it a lot easier to get the tool in place. And it also, with these pieces being plastic, most of them are 30 to 40 years old. They're very brittle. So any movement that you can get out of them to give you more room gives you a smaller chance of actually breaking them. So on this part, we're going to get one of the jaws installed. And so we're just going to go ahead and slide this in between here and get it where it's on the gear. And then we're just going to rotate it over and get it centered on this one timing mark here. So now that we've got this first jaw in place, we're going to go ahead and take the puller with the other 2 jaws on it and get them lined up with these 2 marks here. And so the main bolt is going to go into the hole, and you're going to line up this top one with this hole here, and you're going to center these 2 other teeth or jaws on it. And so we're just going to go ahead and tighten these down. And you just need to get these finger tight. Now that we've got all 3 jaws centered on there, you're going to take your 19mm wrench and you're just going to go ahead and start tightening the bolt. And this is going to go and bottom out where the crank bolt goes. And you're going to feel some resistance when you get to that point where it starts pulling it out. And you can see where the gear is starting to move. And now you've got the gear off. Okay, so just like the crank gear, we're going to go ahead and get one of the jaws started on here. And the benefit of this jaw is that it's wide, but it gives you good tooth engagement, and we can use the plastic cover to also help get it in place and kind of hold it for us. So the oil pump gear does not have an even number of teeth like the crankshaft does, so the holes are a little off center. So on this particular one, we're just going to go ahead and get the nut started on this one. Just to get it started, and then we're going to reach up underneath here and using our hands, we're just going to go ahead and get that tightened down. If you notice, in this particular scenario, we do have an acorn nut on here, and that is specifically to kind of help get it centered so that when we start cranking on it, it can actually start pulling the gear off. Okay, so we've got all three of the jaws on here, and we've got this tight. And again, we just start with our 19 millimeter, and as you see, it just starts pulling that gear back immediately. So we've got that nut to handle most of the force. And if you have a challenge with all three of these, holding all three of these on, you can actually use like a really large rubber band or something like that to help hold it in place. So now that we've gotten the gear loose, we probably won't need as much force, and as you can see with just my hand, it's coming off now. So the hardest part on the oil pump gear is just getting it started, breaking it loose from the shaft. Okay, so these little triangles, they're kind of interesting in the fact that the holes are not symmetrical. So on the tool itself, there's a notch, and that notch lines up with the key for the actual camshaft. So we get that lined up, and the first thing we do is get this one started since it's on top. And on the driver's side, there's quite a bit of room behind it. And since I dropped one of these, let me pick that up. And we'll go ahead and get this other one started here on the outside. And again, you just want to get them started. You don't want to go all the way through. You could actually hit that rear timing belt cover if you go too far. And you want to make sure that they're both in very similar distances so they're equal. And then we get the third one going over here on this side. And just get this started by hand. And again, with your 19 millimeter wrench, you just start turning on it. As you can see, this, once you break it loose, it starts to come off quite easily. So they won't always break loose this easily. You want to make sure that you have the bolt oiled with 3-in-1 oil. You don't want to use motor oil or anything like that that's too thick, because these threads on this bolt are pretty fine. And so the triangle is off. You could also use this tool to remove the triangle with the camshaft gear installed if you can't get the camshaft gear off of the shaft.